A very good evening to all of you. Welcome to ICFAI's Wise Views Leadership Conversations held each Friday at 7:30 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are extremely delighted and in fact excited to have Mrs. Amala Akkineni join us for this leadership conversation this evening. Madam, good evening to you on behalf of all of us. Mrs. Amala, welcome.
Good evening, Sudhakar Rao. It's wonderful to be here.
At the outset, I am extremely thankful to you for having agreed to speak in our leadership conversation. Thank you, ma'am. And without much ado, I would like to take this opportunity of sharing with everyone here that this is the 41st leadership conversation uninterrupted. Every Friday, almost at the same time, we have been having these conversations with some of the change makers that this country has produced. I'm sure we are also going to look at the change makers from abroad and from all walks of life, like technology, education, social work, sports, so on and so forth. I think we have looked at each and every sector, and we continue to have many more leaders, many more change makers who are going to be part of this conversation in the weeks to come. So I would now take pleasure in introducing our esteemed guest, Mrs. Amala. Let me share my screen. The topic for the day is Leadership for Social Purpose, the case of Amala Akkineni garu, who is with us this evening. Mrs. Amala is going to talk about the presentation that she's going to deliver will be for about 20 minutes roughly, followed by questions and answers. These questions are collected from all the participants at the time of registration, and these questions are segregated into various clusters, and those will be taken up by myself and my esteemed colleague, Professor Prasad. About Mrs. Amala, she does not need any great introduction, but let me make a small attempt in introducing her to all the guests who are present here this evening. Mrs. Amala completed her education at Kalakshetra College of Fine Arts at Chennai. She had a successful career in Indian cinema, completing 54 films in 5 Indian languages so far, and continues to do cameo roles today. I watched her movie in 1989, that is Shiva, the iconic film that was released when I was in my 11th class. About the BlueCross, Mrs. Amala married the hero, Mr. Akkineni Nagarjuna, and she lives in Hyderabad, and together they founded BlueCross of Hyderabad, an animal welfare organization working for the welfare of street animals in Hyderabad since 1992. Over the last 30 years, they've helped over 5.5 lakh animals through various services. The organization currently focuses on reducing animal suffering through animal birth control and anti-rabies vaccination for street dogs, and offers animal welfare training. She is currently the director at Annapurna College for Film and Media, which was started inside Annapurna Studios by the legendary actor Akkineni Nageshwar Rao. There are many fans to the entire family, starting from Sri Akkineni Nageshwar Rao garu, then to Mr. Nagarjuna, and to Mrs. Amala and Chaitanya, and everyone in the family actually. The college offers BA and MA degrees in film and media and in animation, and is affiliated to JNFA University, Hyderabad. Mrs. Amala is known to leverage her time, resources, and voice for social change and empowerment. She has served on several founding and governing boards, both for non-government as well as government organizations, which are working for such causes, and was awarded the Nari Shakti Award by the Ministry for Women and Child Welfare in 2016 for her stupendous work. On a personal note, Mrs. Amala loves animals and nature. She's a voracious reader, you will discover very soon, and she's an avid traveler and practices Vipassana meditation. So with this brief introduction, I will stop sharing the screen and welcome Mrs. Amala to start her presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention. If you have any queries in between, you can post the same in the chat box. We will take up those questions. You can put it in the Q&A section as well. We will try and make this session as interactive as possible. But first, we will listen to Mrs. Amala and the depth of purpose and the depth of reading is completely going to be evident in the talk that we are going to begin just now. Over to you, Mrs. Amala Garu, and welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Sudhakar Garu. Thank you, Professor Prasad, for this wonderful opportunity. And thank you for asking me to post it on the talk, the announcement on my social media handles. I never do that. So it was a nice opportunity to connect with followers. Hello, everyone out there. I can see all your messages. So lovely to be welcomed like this and to be greeted. I can see some of my friends there as well, and some of the volunteers from the BlueCross. And to all the viewers, to all the graduates of ICFAI, to all the aspiring leaders, I have put a few of my thoughts together. What you will see in the presentation I've put together, and I worked on it today, it's not about me or my life. That's boring. But the journey I chose and these amazing treasures I found along the way. And I just believe these wonderful treasures may just be of great value to you, and you can reach out to them and know that they exist in this wonderful world that we're in. And I hope you enjoy it. So without any delay, I'm gonna go into the topic. I did share a few thoughts to help you kind of get clued into what to expect. For those of you who didn't, this was a quote that I had shared, and I'll give you a moment to read it and just to kind of quieten down. I'm not sure if that's covering the title, but anyway, it starts with life happens when we are busy planning it. And I've put like 5 big milestones just to kind of give us a graph on how life unfolded for me. The pandemic has taught us so much. And I know a lot of you would have lost people you know, lost valuable time. There's been so much economic loss. There's been so much taken away and restricted. I know a lot of people really struggled through it. For those of us who have comfortable homes, we were able to bond with family and find a different meaning to life. We were able to learn to work from home, to work online, and discover this amazing online space where we've connected with people across the world. I mean, Sudhakar Garu was saying 41 such events, which weren't happening in the earlier days. You'd have to drive and go through traffic, and only if you got a seat in the hall, you would be able to attend. But now we're crossing borders with this. So in this space, I'm mindful that we're in this space, and I'm going to share the 5 major pillars of my life. I started out, as my introduction said, with classical dance, completed my schooling and my college in Kalakshetra College of Fine Art, and the training of Bharatanatyam helped me find work in the films. Movies is a very demanding profession. It's all day. It was all day, every day, with no respite. And before I knew it, 54 films were over, and I decided I'll step back and start a family. And that's how I got a beautiful family. And I was just engulfed with the Akkineni family and the whole Annapurna name, and of course my wonderful husband Nagarjuna. And then I became a mother, and I had Akhil as a son. In the middle of all these beautiful moments for me was my discovery of animal welfare, and taking my husband's help to kind of build an infrastructure for very affordable services to be provided for animals that would otherwise have no help at all. And all of that led me to become the director of Annapurna College. Here I am today. So is that all? No, that's everything in a nutshell. And so many wonderful treasures came up to help me navigate this journey. And I thought I'll share those in this slide. So as a dancer, started off as a dancer. I spent almost 11 years studying dance, and the training of a dancer is very crucial. I mean, you learn something called the practice. If you want to be a dancer, you have to practice the dance for about 2 to 3 hours every day. And if you don't have a practice, you're not considered a dancer. You can't just leap into the stage and start dancing, right? So every day is a rigorous practice for a dancer. And this develops a very important and valuable creative discipline, which will then help you across any kind of creative work you take up. And I believe that this was my core strength, to bring in that ability to practice and prepare myself for something. It comes from that discipline of a dancer. The other treasure I inculcated during my dancing career was traveling across the world. You know, I performed with the Kalakshetra dance troupe. There's our troupe performing. I was 13 in that picture. From the age of 13, I started and I continued till I graduated. And we traveled the length and breadth of India. We traveled abroad. I went to China 40 years ago. And I went to China recently. 40 years ago, they were on par with us, no different. And recently, when I went, they had traveled 40 years into the future and we had stayed behind. In the travel, I learned diversity. I learned the beauty of cultural diversity, religious diversity, diversity of people, being able to connect to different cultures and appreciate this beautiful country we live in. Travel was just such an eye-opener. Rukmini Devi used to call the University of Life. She called travel the University of Life. And I also hold that very precious in Annapurna College. Recently, we took our documentary filmmakers out of the classroom and into the mountains to make their documentary films. And they all said it was the most wonderful experience that they had had during their college life. From the dance, let me go to, in the movies, what was the best takeaway of the movies was really my husband. Very honestly, it was all the name and fame and all the wealth that came with it. But I think the biggest treasure was really meeting my husband and getting married to Nagarjuna and moving to Hyderabad. I think that was the highlight of my movie career. And I will hold that. My family life was, of course, motherhood. The most beautiful experience was motherhood. And to all the mothers out there, I'm sure you'll understand. Motherhood is that, or parenthood to all the parents out there is the most precious experience. And I hold it so dear to my heart, where, you know, you can think of another human being before you think of yourself. I think that's a very rare moment. And you also learn to let go. Finally, when they grow up, you have to let go. Or there's such precious moments of parenting. You rediscover life with your child. Yeah, that was the treasure from family life, was becoming a parent. In setting up the BlueCross, I had many treasures. I think the greatest takeaway of setting it up, and I will have 2 or 3 slides just on the BlueCross a little later, but to tell you in brief, it was learning the way out of suffering. That was the treasure, of to know how to navigate one's way out of suffering was the greatest gift BlueCross gave me in return for what I did for the animals. Truly blessed. It also gave me the Nari Shakti, and I'm very grateful for it. I think this Nari Shakti also came after we had cleaned up some of the dirtiest parts of the city through the Swachh Bharat campaign. As a Swachh Bharat ambassador, some of the dirtiest parts, because we go to find the dogs and we find the filth and then we clean up the filth as well. And that's really the culmination of doing some serious groundwork the Nari Shakti. But the Nari Shakti also gave me a bigger gift, and it was connecting to other Nari Shaktis of India. And that was the greatest treasure that I got out of that moment. There were 30 other amazing women who were just doing groundbreaking work in their parts. We've still kept in touch, and we keep nominating other women about that. And I have a slide on that, and it'll come in the future. So, and of course, finally, Annapurna College. Annapurna College taught me leadership. I think leadership is a constant garden that you keep planting new skills and skills and plants and thoughts and abilities that will help you as a leader. But I think the true leadership I learned from all my colleagues and my students in Annapurna College, how to lead as a wiser and more quieter leader. So on that note, let's dive into these separate sections. So the way out of suffering, right? 29 years, we just completed 29 years, 550,000 animals. And in the midst of all of this, we created, or we became part of a nationwide animal-friendly movement. The Animal Welfare Board of India has over 2,000 animal welfare groups registered with it. We are part of the Federation of Animal Protection Organization, part of the founders, and we have been instrumental to motivate and help train and form 14 odd groups in the city. And of course, all of them have worked with us as well. The BlueCross is not just Nagarjuna and me. Please don't for a moment think that is. We started it. We kind of gave birth to it back 29 years ago. But it was taken over by the city's animal welfare movement, by animal-friendly people who just put everything they had and believed in and came and worked and took this organization 29 years into the future. And we have over 200 active volunteers working on the streets all across the city. So wonderful. Is it all wonderful? No. To do anything, and this is where the synopsis covered some things, setting up an organization, establishing systems and processes, getting the right people together, making sure you find the right niche of where you can truly make a difference. All this takes time. For the first 20 years of BlueCross of Hyderabad, we did everything. We did everything to help animals and whatever needed to be done. But after that, things got a little difficult in the sense, the city moved from being a small sleepy town of Hyderabad into this huge metropolis with a huge population and a lot of traffic, and our small group with just a few vehicles couldn't really address the needs of the city. And while this was happening, we realized we had to kind of reinvent ourselves and find what worked. So one fine day, we shut everything down and we called everybody into our training hall and we did a huge brainstorm. And there was a lot of debate. We listed out about 25 things that were going wrong. All these things were going very right in the previous years. In earlier years, they were going very right. Things had really worked out before. But now in this new scenario, things weren't going very well. And after we listed out these 25 things that didn't work, it was just so clear when you acknowledge the truth that something's not working, it's so clear to understand what does work. And we found the things that we did do that were working very well directly impacted all the 25 things that were going wrong. Every single issue and suffering and mistake that was going wrong was corrected by these three things, which were the animal birth control and vaccination program for street animals. One pair of dogs can give raise to 2,000 in their lifetime. urbanization creates huge amounts of garbage on the street. And this garbage attracts and breeds stray animals. They prolifically breed, and one pair can give rise to 2,000. Where there are too many dogs, there are dog fights, there's the aggression in the breeding cycle, and there is dog bites and rabies, and basically a human-animal conflict. The animal birth control and the vaccination immediately addresses this, bringing down the population, stabilizing the population, and thereby creating rabies-free zones for the city. In this work, we also take care of the emergency care and the adoption of all the puppies, thereby, making it a very well dog managed area. And then we train people on how to do this as well, and how to make their streets safe, and how to take up an ABC and a vaccination and an adoption program in their area. It really worked. And for the last 3 years, this is all we've been done. We've been able to do 12,000 sterilization operations in a year. That's 1,000 every month. This in turn directly reduces the stray dog population by 1 lakh in the future. So you have every month we are ensuring there are 1 lakh street dogs less in the future. And just by focusing on what we can do and what makes the impact, we've been able to make the city a much safer, animal-friendly place. Was I always able to do things like this? And was the BlueCross always able to function like this? No, we weren't. So within a year of starting the BlueCross, I had seen so much animal suffering, and I'm sure every animal-friendly person out there in the viewers who's helping an animal, who works for animal welfare, or who wants to work for animal welfare, we are basically empathizers. We feel deeply. And when you're an empathizer, you get sucked into the suffering of others. And here we were seeing all this suffering. And I came here in 1992. There was sickness and disease and road accidents and abuse everywhere. And not just for the animals on the street, but for animals in the zoos, animals in the circus, animals in the laboratories, animals in people's homes. There was a lot of suffering, and working animals and animals in the farms and animals on the streets. So in the midst of all this suffering, I kind of lost my balance. And I realized that's not going to help. So as a leader, I was not prepared at all. And that's not a good place to be. When you're just feeling so emotional about everything, you'd never be able to find solutions for others. So I stepped back and I decided I will see and find the way out for myself. I need to find a solution for myself. And that's when I stepped back. I was 8 months pregnant at the time with my younger son, Akhil. So it was a very important time for me. And I stepped back and I decided to do something for myself. And one morning I opened the newspaper and there was a big caption out there: the way out of suffering, the teachings of the Buddha. And it was like that page was talking to me. I needed to find the way out of suffering. The page was talking to me. And it was a beautiful smiling face of Goenkaji, Mr. Pardon me, Mr. Satyanarayana Goenka, the world teacher of Vipassana. And he was talking about the teachings of the Buddha. And I went for the 3-day talks. It was beautiful. And I would invite you. These talks are on YouTube. He talked about the 4 noble truths. I shared the 3 truths. And the 4th is that the way out is Vipassana. This human life has suffering. That's the first acceptance. I had reached there. I knew that very clearly. This human life has suffering. I had seen so much of it. The next step is the cause of that suffering is our craving and our aversion. So our whole life, we go running after what we like and we go running away from what we don't like. So between our craving of what we like and what we don't like, and what we like and what we don't like, and what we like. And we get so tired. This is if you see a film called The Social Dilemma, our social media, our digital world is dragging us constantly to what we like, and thumbs down to what we don't like. And this actually causes so much stress to our brains. But in life as well, I like, I don't like, I like, I don't like, I like, I don't like. We don't realize that this is what causes us stress, not the outside world. And the outside world is just bouncing our own stress off of it. So if we're running after cravings and aversions, and this is the seed of our dukkha, this is causing all that dukkha, then what about the suffering outside? It says, well, there is a way out, and the way out is within, and that is Vipassana. It's the Eightfold Path, about being able to see things differently. And just to kind of give you a little and deeper understanding, if you take the human mind like a giant iceberg, giant iceberg, and you see the conscious mind is the top of the iceberg, and the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind is below the surface. And the conscious mind is running after what I like, what I don't like, what I like, what I don't like. It's so busy there. And most of us, I'm talking now, but you're not really listening to me, or at least most of you will be listening to your own thoughts, reflecting on what I'm saying, or what you remember, or what you think, or what you're comparing it to. You may be judging me. You may have more important thoughts in your mind to think about. You may have heard something different. You may be saying, oh dear, is this a Buddhist lecture? No, please don't worry. This is not a Buddhist lecture. I'm just trying to give you the science of this. So if we're reacting to our own thoughts, why can't we just control them? And that's what the giant iceberg demonstrates for us. Below the surface is this massive subconscious, which is a collection of all our past thoughts, actions, experiences are collected there. And when the conscious mind gets slightly disturbed, there's a huge explosion from the subconscious, and the conscious mind gets disturbed. So what is the way? And that's what the Buddha taught. Go within, and Vipassana is a beautiful technique. You have 10 days to learn it. There are free meditation centers where they teach this to you free of cost. It's the universal truth is priceless. You cannot pay for it. So you go there as a bhikkhu, you go and you take the teaching and you practice the meditation, and they teach you to kind of go within, settle the breath. Through the breath, you learn to calm the mind, and you learn to reach a state of equanimity through this beautiful technique. So what is equanimity? We look at it. We look at it now. So equanimity is when you can stop oscillating between what you like, what you don't like, the craving, the aversion, the craving, the aversion. And you actually come to, the body has a biological homeostasis. Homeostasis is that biological equilibrium that the body requires and the body is programmed to do, but the mind is not. And here, this technique helps you learn to bring the mind to that homeostasis or that equilibrium, so you can rest, recover, and you can find that inner peace and calm. And you also clean up that all the debris which is inside that subconscious mind. It's a beautiful state to be in, and it's a beautiful technique. It taught me how to come out of my own suffering. And then in that place, you see, nature abhors a vacuum. So if you create a space, then you better fill it up quickly, or it'll get filled up with something else, right? And that's where Maitri comes into it. So you fill your being, or you fill that space with Maitri and service. And of course, it's a choice. I decided to fill it with Maitri and service. And as within, so without, I'll give you a moment to read this. So when you fill your being with a very peaceful, calm, collected, quiet mind, you find the ability to see. It's like a transparent glass. You're able to see things so separately because they're not clouded with your own judgment or your own perception, which is limited. And when you experience the truth, as Goenkaji says, the madness of finding fault with others disappears. So you fill it with compassion. For me, I also discovered the rest of the sustainable development goals. I've got friends across the nation working in different NGOs and different development goals towards working towards eradicating poverty, climate change, education, you name it, clean water, sanitation, solar, power, equitable power for all, so on and so forth. Now, there is a danger when you're a very empathetic person. And I find a lot of animal-friendly people or people working in the NGO sector, they have this, this difficulty of getting extremely disturbed or passionate and involved in what they do. I would say that there are two very important, what would the right word be, tools to keep in mind to protect your empathy and compassion. An empathizer is like an energy field, and it attracts a lot of energy vampires, people who take advantage of you. I don't know if you've felt that, but they'd be very attracted to you and they try to take advantage of all your good nature and what you do. There's a beautiful video on YouTube, The 7 Energy Vampires. I'd invite you to watch those videos. And there are a lot of internal energy vampires as well. And those phantom vampires are our regrets and our own thoughts and limited beliefs about ourselves and the world. For those of you looking for the way out of suffering, looking for that strong inner practice, I'd invite you to look at the 3 Vipassana centers in Hyderabad. One is at Nagarjuna Sagar, one is in Kondapur, and one is in Manasthalipuram. And they're beautiful centers, over 35 years old. And I've been going there for the last 28 years. And I would strongly recommend you go read up on the website dhamma.org, dhamma.org, and sign yourself up for a 10-day course to learn this beautiful technique taught by the Buddha. And don't forget to watch the video 7 Energy Vampires. I just have two or three more slides left. I'll be quick. Changing perception. This is also important in leadership for with a purpose, because there are many limited beliefs which make things a certain way. I would say there are 2 important strengths to keep with you. Choose wisely what you fight against. You can't be fighting all the time, or you'll have no energy to fight the real battle. And if you're starting out with a cause or as a leader just to have a jolly time, go sell ice cream. Don't try and be a leader. Don't try and work for a cause, because the path is full of obstacles. You're here to work on obstacles, to overcome the biggest challenges of your life. So only if you have that spirit in you to face the tough journey, only then take this path. The obstacles are not blocks, they are the path. So let's look at it. I say that 5 in my understanding, I'm sure there are many, many more, but these 5 are the key ones I faced time and again. The first 3, ignorance, social evil, superstition, this goes with a very clear messaging and an education through very thought of or specially designed strategic interventions of how you present the material, How do you present the information? How do you present a better way, making it more and more attractive for them to understand and practice it? The first three are basically can be overcome with proper information strategically presented. The fourth one is the most difficult, and that is the negative bias, because that you are fighting the giant iceberg under the surface. That is the biggest challenge that you can that you will face. And you have to figure that one out only through your own experiential understanding. I will share a few tips, but again, each of us have our own experience. The fifth one, the political agenda, that you know that, okay, if there are undercurrents and underforces preventing your work, then I found that best is to stop at that point, wait till the current changes, because every few years, the political will changes, the needs change, the approach changes, and there will be a time, they say the time has come, apna time aayega. So you have to wait for the right time. But the negative bias was the most difficult because it's unseen, it's undercurrent, and it's a huge giant iceberg. It's almost like an ant fighting an elephant. So this is my understanding of how to change behavior. Instead of telling you what I did, I kind of put it in a nutshell to say that this is how you go about changing perception and behavior. I think the secret of change, and I love this quote, is it's compared to surfing or swimming, that instead of putting all your energy on fighting something, build something new. Because something new is always hopeful, and it can bridge the old into the future. It can bridge the past into the future, you know? When you, if you've ever been in the ocean and you see the waves coming one after the other, and you've ever swum in the ocean, you'll know there are currents. If you try to fight a current, you will drown. Most certainly you will drown. But if you learn to ride that current and flow along with that current, you'll find yourself so far near your destination that you would have, you know, harnessed the power of Mother Nature. And I do believe that the digital age is providing us that that tool, which is so powerful to kind of bridge into all the sections of our community where we couldn't go before, with understanding of such quality that we couldn't deliver before. So what are those positives? I think there are some basic things in social work. You have participatory projects, not charity projects. That word charity is long gone. They're participatory projects. They're that provide affordable services, not free services. Free services are of very inferior quality. Affordable services will ensure good quality. The stakeholder teams where equal distribution of not only training, but equity and development happen. This is very important if you want to step away from it. Otherwise, they become dependent on you all along. And share and celebrate successes of others, as well as the teams and the community. Follow the truth, it sets you free. I will leave the Ikigai for another day because we've way past our time. Do we have time for this one, Sudhakar Garu?
Yes, please.
You do? Okay. So in wrapping up, how does one move from knowing to doing? And this has been my most valuable journey. I think my constant search is, how do you help someone who knows to move off the couch to actually do something to change their life? And I have puzzled over it, and I'd love to hear what all of you believe in too. But I think it's an attitude. It's an attitude to do what you know, not just talk about it or criticize or comment about it. I think it's an attitude. And I like putting things flat out there. I think a bad attitude is like a flat tire. You can't go anywhere until you change it. So what do you do to change it? Now, I struggled with I was searching for the answer and I was trying to articulate it, but I found something so beautifully articulated in this book, Mindset. And I think this is a book that every one of you must read. I strongly recommend it. It was written by Dr. Carol Dweck. She's my hero. She's my Nari Shakti, and I think she should get the next Nobel Prize in education, at least. And she kind of put her study of thousands and thousands of people together in this book. There's an audio book if you don't have time to read, or if you're not a reader. But if you're a reader, you must read it, discuss it. It's really fantastic. In a nutshell, she talks about the two mindsets. And you see, there are some people who they may be very successful, but they're very insecure, and they're nasty, and they're extremely critical of others. They don't allow anybody else to shine. They take away the glory to themselves. They don't allow anyone to survive in their space. And basically, they're not a very happy person to be around. But then there is the other who is not only capable, but also is able to take everybody else along with them in that direction. And I just borrowed a slide from the internet to kind of demonstrate this. So you have the fixed mindset, which avoids challenges. They become very repetitive in their success. They ignore criticism. They believe that talent is only with them, nobody else. There's less effort to go on repeating themselves. They easily give up. On the negative side, they could not be achievers. They may think themselves as failures. They may be threatened by others and think that they never can and they never will. But then there is the growth mindset that embraces challenges. And no matter how many times they fail, they will learn, they will take feedback, they will take criticism and improve themselves, use their intelligence and develop it. And they put in more and more effort. They never give up trying. That's Drogo barking. They persist in the face of setbacks. They're inspired. They learn from failure and they take everybody else with them. But towards the end of her book, you also understand something. And this is what the Buddha talks about. It's kind of a big circle. That this growth mindset and fixed mindset is actually in all of us. And every time you are going into a negative downslide, your mind is shifting into a fixed mindset attitude where you are hardwired. How does it happen? Child draws a butterfly, mother says beautiful, oh, she loves beautiful. She goes back next day, again, she draws a butterfly, again, mother says beautiful, teacher says beautiful. In their good nature, they don't realize they're getting the child to crave for the beautiful. She's craving to be told, oh, she's drawing beautifully, beautifully, beautifully. Her whole life, she'll only draw butterflies. And that's the hardwiring of the brain. And that's the development of the fixed mindset. Somebody says, what are you drawing? How many times you're drawing butterflies? And then she'll be heartbroken and she'll say, nobody loves me and I'm a failure. So how do you move into the growth mindset? So each of us have that fixed mindset where we're insecure and we only want to run after praise. How do you develop the growth mindset? And that is that mindfulness. Whenever you see yourself in that downslide, become more mindful and reach out to the highest part of you that's got that positive attitude, build that attitude of a growth mindset and, learn from your mistakes, pick yourself up and appreciate what you can do, develop that practice. Oh, it's a beautiful journey. It's a meditator's journey. It's an artist's journey. It's a creative person's journey. It's an educator's journey. I think it's every professional's journey to find that balance. If you ask me what's next, I definitely hope to connect to more women. And I think I love this quote from Madeleine Albright. There's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. I love it. And so I will stay connected and keep working to help women find their place, their rightful place on this planet. I also believe a lot in diversity and justice. And I hope to do more in this area. And I think through the Film and Media College, this is what we're also seeing amongst us, that, you know, film and media is a huge tool to transcend diversity, equity, and bring in more justice across the world, and to help humankind see a better way to do things. I also want very much to see the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act move from into a better space. It's a 60-year-old act, and it really needs to be rewritten, and I truly hope to contribute to this. My presentation is done. I way crossed the time limit. I'm sorry, Sudhakar Garu. I apologize. I end with this quote, and thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for this awesome session. It's not a talk, actually. You have created a new motor, and it has redefined the pace of how we have to look at, appreciate, and interpret the points that you're making. What I understood is that there is a lot of calmness, there's a lot of peace, there's a huge collective mindset, a reflective mindset rather, in the way that you have communicated your journey of life, right from dance to family to movies to BlueCross to even the college that you're the director right now for. I think across all these 5 important milestones, you have communicated a fantastic reflective mindset of where you picked up your battles, how you conserved your energy, and what kind of depths that you have actually gone into to find that meaning, that purpose. And some of these anchors have helped you navigate your way out of many stressful conditions, and thereby helped you focus strategically on the social cause that you have chosen. And I think in a nutshell, that has explained to us your leadership for social purpose, the purpose that you have chosen in your life. And it has connected various other elements in life that you have actually chosen to select those few paths. And those few paths are quite, I would say, profound. Of course, a lot goes in the way you have narrated, and the profundity is quite amazing according to me. And I think this is a very, very different conversation. It's a very, very different leadership talk that we have had of all the 41. Generally, we stick to time, but today you have told us that we can actually go a little beyond time. And in the next few minutes, we will definitely start the question and answer sessions. I will invite Professor Prasad to be ready. But one point about this initial remarks and the presentation made by Mrs. Amala Garu, it is so clear that it takes great deal of introspection. It takes great deal of even stopping your work in tracks, brainstorming, reconnecting with yourself at various stages in your journey, and come back more energetic and do more justice to the cause that one has chosen. I think that's the takeaway for us. And straight away, we will now get into the question and answer session. There are lots of questions. We have clustered them, and Professor Prasad and I will alternate between each and every cluster. And I'm sure we will restrict to 4 clusters. We will reduce the number of questions to the extent possible because some of them have already been answered. I wholeheartedly welcome Professor Prasad. Professor Prasad is the architect of the online MBA program that we've launched recently. He's an alumnus of IIT Bombay and IIM Calcutta. He has 3 decades of experience, an entrepreneur, a professional in corporate world, as well as an excellent colleague now in the academic world. Welcome, Professor Prasad. Please start the session.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Madam, I don't know what to say. I think, the entire session that you've taken has shown where your passion and focus is and where all this thing arises. And I think if I have to put it in one line, it is that leadership starts with the self, whether it is for social purpose or business purpose or spiritual purpose. I think it starts with the self, and you've spent a good amount of focus illustrating that. This is one thing. The other thing that I'm very happy about is that you talked about the book Mindset. And my research on education and employability is basically on mindset and Carol Dweck's book. And there's a lot from that book. In fact, after searching for a lot of non-cognitive constructs in psychology, mindset is a construct which I found was the most useful to bring into education as a non-cognitive. There are many, but out of them, mindset was, and I would recommend it for anyone who's working. From there, you went into another dimension, is about knowing to being. And I think I was reminded of this concept of awareness and obviously mindfulness. The Vietnamese monk who very recently passed away. And I also remember Jiddu Krishnamurthy's teaching that if you're aware that there's a snake in front of you, you'll jump, you'll act. So awareness, mindfulness is something that I think a lot of us need to learn far more, and each of us is in a different stages of the journey there. And I think you also brought in earlier the concept of vibration in another way, that if you tune into the vibration, which is positive and which is more akin to your passion and your personality, then you can take things far ahead. And of course, you connected there to Maitri. So I'm sure that, there's a lot to learn for all of us there. With that, ma'am, I'll now come to the question cluster, which is more down to earth and, but which is supported by all these things which are so very subconscious and unconscious. So in no way will I say that it is, it is absolutely relevant. It's absolutely of top importance that, many of us don't realize in that moment of action. So I'll come to the cluster, ma'am. The first cluster is related to the self, more about yourself. And here, you did give us a background. So you are very well known in the film industry. How did you connect to your purpose? I mean, you've talked about it with respect to animals, also with respect to Vipassana. What was your journey to connecting to your purpose?
I started with life happens when you're busy planning it. So I had all these designs and these plans of being this dancer or this veterinary doctor. As a student, you have all these designs, but then suddenly the performing happened and the movies happened. And in the middle of all of that, I think I rescued my first animal when I was maybe 5 or 6. I love animals. I grew up with animals. We always had pets and animals at home. My father was a professor at IIT Kharagpur. He was on deputation from the Navy. We had a beautiful garden around our home in the IIT campus, and so many animals there. I was homeschooled, so I really enjoyed spending time with animals. But that was just a love for them. That's my dog snoring. Nobody else. Hey, Drogo, you're snoring. Don't mind him, sorry. It didn't crystallize into doing something until I went to hostel, and hostel, there were all these animals, and very soon I was in charge of feeding them. We used to collect all the waste from the plates and put it into a feeding bowl so that animals didn't have to eat it off the floor and things like that. But it wasn't until I moved to Hyderabad and I took a step back from my busy profession that I actually noticed the suffering on the street. And I think Nagarjuna gave me that space to rediscover myself and that support I started picking them up and bringing them home and looking after them. There was this amazing veterinary doctor in Shantinagar Government Veterinary Hospital, Dr. Vijay Kumari, and she used to treat them. And I used to bring them back home and take care of them. Before we know it, my house was like a zoo. There were animals everywhere, and that's how it began. And it was Nagarjuna who said, you know, this isn't right. You've got to do it in a more organized fashion. Imagine how many more you could help. It was his idea. So I'm a doer. I'm not a big strategist. I need somebody on the, and when you're very involved closely, you can't think strategy. You need somebody from the outside kind of to give that direction. I think Nag was that in my life, to kind of give that, hey, you know, you love that so much, you're good at it, why don't you do it in a more organized fashion? That's how I found it. Yeah, that's how I found it. So life happens when you're busy planning it.
I think what I take away from this is that, you know, you got space, and it is that space where, you know, you reflected, and you had a period in your life when you were not, you know, maybe the regular execution was not taking place. And I think that's when it happened.
Absolutely.
Excellent, ma'am. The next question is about your journey. When you, in your journey in life, you surely would have come up a lot of challenges. And when you reflect back, can you look at one or two challenges which have shaped you and made you into what you are?
The biggest one was not being able to handle the amount of suffering, you know, and that need to find the way out of suffering. I think to navigate through all that emotion and all that empathy, to be able to reach that space of true compassion where you can think with a very clear mind and channel those thoughts into something very constructive and actually see it through to show wonderful results, you know, that would benefit everyone, not just talk about it or feel sorry for it or feel bad for it. I think being able to find that inner tool, it's a toolkit actually. Vipassana is a toolkit for life. And it's a time-tested one. I think that was, it is my greatest strength. Yeah.
Wonderful, ma'am. I think, you know, you encapsulated the challenge in terms of an internal. And that internal was the suffering that you had. And I think there is a lot for others in that the source of suffering may be anything else. You covered that, you know, when you presented. But I think the root cause lies inside you. And I think you pointed that out very well. And then from there, you flipped it into the other side of it, which is compassion. And you also connected the journey that was through Vipassana. I think, you know, there was one part of it I didn't answer. How did you overcome it? You responded to it. I come to the third question, ma'am. This is, you have broadly covered it. So if you want to, you know, add to it, this is basically how do you keep yourself motivated on your purpose and keep negativity at bay? You have dealt on this in a different way. Would you like to add something there?
It's a daily practice. I carried it from my dance training. I found it very helpful for my meditation. You know, meditation is that daily practice. And I think that to be able to stop, sit down and put in the work that keeps you going. And there's no excuse, no Sunday, no nothing. You just keep doing it. And then you can't live any other way. It becomes you.
I think this too, you have encapsulated very well into the words daily practice. And you highlighted an anchor. In your case, it was Vipassana. That daily anchor which helped you to grow along the path that you chose and what was intended. And I think that is also true for anyone else in what they want to fulfill as purpose. Absolutely.
Absolutely. In any field, you're right. The practice.
Excellent, ma'am. There is a fourth question in this cluster. And here, I think I connect to the fact that you talked about 200 other welfare organizations, 200 volunteers, and not 200, maybe a lesser number. And also the fact that, there is a certain kind of equality and, dependence, interdependence when it comes to stakeholder management. Very, very important for the kind of organizations which are there in social purpose, also for any other type of organizations today, because people are getting more specialized and, you can't do everything yourself, you have to depend on others. So in this context, what would you like to, delve a little more upon so that, we develop this competency of interdependency?
Participatory social welfare is the way now. I wouldn't do justice to put it in a nutshell because I'm not the expert. I mean, I know there's an MS social work now, a 2-year course that just focuses on this. It basically takes you to the crux, I suppose, like a management program with the core of what is a participatory program. But it's really the art of listening. If you ask me in one line, it's the art of listening. You can't just walk into a community and say, I know what I will tell you what to do. I know the right way. That's not how true social empowerment goes. Every community have their own issues, have their own diversity, have their own aspirations, have all their own challenges. They've got their own plans, successes and failures, everything already. They are no different from any of us. It's that ability to keep yourself aside and go listen. And when you truly listen, not to answer, not to fix, not to solve, not to pontificate, but to listen, to understand, things really fall into place. My creative mind works. I see bits and pieces of the puzzle falling into place, and then you have to discuss it with them and see if it matches their aspirations, and then see if you can help them find the solutions that they need. They must want it, they must need it, and it must really truly shift the quality of their life, and it must work. And this is what the crux of what participatory welfare is about. They must need it, they must want it, it must benefit them. And then you see how to find people among them who do similar things, but then match it. And it's only in the rarest of rarest cases where it's not available there, you bring in the professional to do it. But the professional also, it's better that the professional starts this affordable service, which is funded by the community, or at least partially funded by the community, supported by some aid from outside. Slowly you withdraw the aid so that they will sustain it in the long run. And I think those are my greatest joy has been to be able to say, okay, our work is done. Chalo, pack up, time to leave. And every decade we've been able to do that and just move on and say, wow, we're not needed anymore. And I think that's truly the success of participatory social work. I have the most beautiful conversations with my gardener's daughter, who's a software engineer with Tata Services, and she's moving to Canada to do her master's, and she speaks the most beautiful English. And she's taken her parents during these COVID times to the ICU in one of the top corporate hospitals because she can afford it now. And it's just the most joyful conversations to have.
I think, Pam, you remind me of, again, it's an Eastern poem. I don't know whether this is Chinese or Buddhist, about, leadership. And it says that, be there, be amongst them, start there. And at the end of it, they say we did it ourselves. And that's when it is the time to leave. I know I remember this poem. I don't remember who the author is. And the other thing, pardon, ma'am?
Sounds lovely.
The other things, again, you've brought in the Buddhist principles, the art of listening. And here I remember Stephen Covey, who said, first seek to understand, then be understood. Starting from the place where you want to make the development, listening to them, building on it, and then finally encapsulating them that in a local solution, where the discussion is local, the ideas are local, perhaps there are some ideas which you have contributed, and then you have helped in bridging in building it. And then there is what you call a local solution, almost like the Internet of Things, and that device which is there somewhere where you're picking up the signals is equivalent of that you're talking about, but this is human and social. There's so much of connection with what's happening in the technology world, and the way the whole thing is getting delegated and reaching the last person, to what you're saying in terms of how social problems can actually be solved. Fantastic, ma'am. Fantastic. I think we come to the end of this cluster. I hand it to Professor Sudhakar.
Thank you, Professor.
And I've been just
Prasad.
waiting, I've been just waiting to increase the speed of this conversation with your
Okay.
permission, madam.
Sure.
This is very interesting, and I'm actually testing the patience of so many people who are glued to this for last 80, 90 minutes now. I think it's going to be, as they say, night is going to be the longer tonight. So, ma'am, this cluster of questions is about social purpose in animals, and I'll restrict myself to 2 or 3 questions, and then I'll open it up for some of the enthusiastic attendees who would like to ask a question or two themselves directly. But first, I will finish my questions, and these can be short answer questions if you wish. To what extent do you think BlueCross has created impact on its purpose, in the sense that for the ambition and for the goal that you have set for BlueCross, where have you reached on a scale of 1 to 10, probably? Where do you think you would have reached?
I love steep climbs. I think we're at 6, and we've got a long way to go.
Okay. What are the limitations that you face on this achievement of your social purpose, with special focus on, say, BlueCross?
So we can't do everything. There's so much to be done, but as a small group and a small space, and we're only able to do that. People do say, why don't you scale up? Why don't you scale up? But it's not a factory. There's a lot of quality control in veterinary care, and I think empowering others to do it would be better for the quality care that's required. So yeah, I haven't figured that one out.
Thank you very much. I think the realization that we can't do everything. We can't do everything that we actually dreamt of doing, but scaling up versus quality control, especially for the animal care, is something which you fundamentally and very strongly believe in. I think that gives the direction of what kind of impact you have already created and how much you are aware of the limitations. And I think that makes the journey that much more meaningful. And also, there is no dissonance between your ambitions as well as the current goal. But very, very down to earth, you have set it at 6 out of 10 at this point in time, and there's a long way to go. And that's quite interesting to note, and see how you will develop and initiate additional steps in your journey. The second question, ma'am, is in our society, we see people celebrate festivals sometimes through gruesome games involving animals. This we have witnessed not just in a particular society, but multiple societies in this country. They call it social, sometimes they call it cultural norms. Especially in these activities, or with these examples, how can we advance our social purpose? I mean, our social purpose versus these social cultural norms.
Yeah, that's where the laws help. And I know that the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act also mandates that there are societies for prevention of cruelty across the country. Every district must have an office and must have volunteers working. So just giving a bit more tooth and claw and energy to that law being revised and being implemented will really go a long way. I think it's the human greed factor. A lot of awareness can be done for better standards. There are 2 wings of the movement, or 2 arms of the movement. One is a lot of advocacy against the cruelty, but there's also another group working very strongly about enforcing the positive, more beneficial practices towards the animals, because you can't remove animals from human culture, right? Animals are part and parcel of the agricultural part of India, and we must respect that. And enforcing those good practices is another wing and arm, and that's where BlueCross participates.
Fantastic. I think you have talked about creating the law which can be sharper, which can have more energy. In your words, more teeth and claws, so that it gets to see the implementation happening, and then that message goes down to the society. On the other hand, the BlueCross would like to focus on beneficial initiatives for the society and for the animals. And that's fantastic, very nicely put. Thank you very much, ma'am. The next question I would like to take up from this is, based on your experience, what measures would you suggest to protect bird species which are becoming fast extinct?
Two things immediately come to mind: plant trees, adopt forests, take up afforestation and indigenous species of trees. Where there are trees, there will be birds. And the other would be to eat organic food. Organically, well, natural farming, is a very wholesome and non-violent way of farming, whereas chemical pesticides kill millions of birds across the world. Just one simple step will save millions of species.
Great. I think natural farming, eating organic food, and of course, planting a lot of trees, that is afforestation program, will help probably protect bird species, as one of our participants has asked. Now, what I'm going to do is, ma'am, I will open up for Mr. Ajay Poddar. Mr. Ajay Poddar was your previous speaker last week. He spoke about environics and the harmful effects of man-made as well as natural radiation. How do we navigate out of that? Okay. So he would like to ask you a question. I'm sure he knows you. And Shrikant, can you please allow Mr. Ajay Poddar to ask the question? Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Amlaji, it's delightful seeing you after 30 years. We were on a flight together to Hyderabad from Chennai, I think, and you were carrying a small pet. And I asked you, how is it on board? Why is it not on the Hathway? And you said you promised the people that you'll not bother anybody. And the things I noticed about you was your compassion, kindness, and your innate wisdom. And you were kind enough to call me and my small nephews and nieces to the film city, I think on Banjara Hills, where Nag was shooting, and when you really were very hospitable. So I know that we are short of time, and I've discovered a couple of common things: the IIT connection and the Vipassana. Okay. So when Goenka ji came in the mid 70s, we hosted some of the first things in IIT Delhi for him. Oh, wow. And since then the journey continues. And we also run an NGO in Mussoorie, near Mussoorie, where he's been enough. So I just wanted to tell you, because you were talking about birds, and now with 5G coming, this is quite a threat to the birds. And I would like to volunteer that in your habitat, which is there for animals, we would like to make it radiation safe. We have a correction practice whereby the ground energies and the Wi-Fi energies can be corrected without sacrificing technology. So that could be my service to the great cause that you are doing. So I'll take your connects from Sudhakar and get in touch with you.
Please do. This is wonderful to hear. I mean, I was puzzling over that piece, and I'm so glad I found a go-to person to understand more and find some solutions. Thank you for that offer.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for raising that question. And what I will do now is I will pause here, and I'll invite Professor Prasad to start the next cluster. And after that, I'll come back and wrap it up. Professor Prasad.
Thank you, Professor Rao. I'll kind of, some of the questions have been answered, so maybe I'll have one or two. The first question here is about, ma'am, handling conflict. You did mention about how you handled it for yourself, but in the kind of work that you do, you would have seen a lot of conflict. So, and I think the world is increasing in conflict, though it may not be as gruesome in the short term as it might seem to be in the wars, but there's a lot of conflict. So what is your what kind of insights or reflections do you have on how you would handle conflicts with the stakeholders and the teams that one works with?
I didn't always. I mean, I would see, it started out with, I would see conflict, what a third party would say would actually just add fuel to the fire, and then there would be just burn, burn, burn. Everyone would burn with their anger and their resentment and their grouses. But Vipassana taught me how to quiet the mind. And it's only when you quiet the mind you can truly listen, because otherwise you're listening to your own noise, you're listening to your own bias, you're listening to your own perception, your own judgment, and that's just fueling the conflict. So when you can quieten the mind and truly listen, you're hearing what is not being said. The words are just the sparks. What is truly bothering them inside is not what's coming out. The sparks are coming out. When you listen, the sparks then stop flying. And then you start asking the question, okay, I want to know more, I want to know more. And then it takes a long time for the actual issue to come. So you're quietening your own sparks in your own mind allows the other person also to quieten down and slowly uncover the truth. You can do it in many ways. I know every great teaching has a way of doing it. Every leader has their way of solving conflict. Every spiritual path has their way of, there's so many ways of doing it. But I found that the more at peace I was, the more I was able to help another find their peace. And also hear the source of their issue. Anger is always from something that is deeply hurt inside. And for that hurt to come out, it takes a bit of time. It's like you've got to really deal with the sparks that are flying, so that that person feels safe enough and vulnerable enough to share what truly bothers them. But then there is also another technique I discovered, which was nonviolent communication. This is Marshall Goldenberg, a beautiful technique, which is, he's no more now, but his YouTube videos are there and his books are there. And I know his trained teachers come and do a workshop. I know there's a trainer in Hyderabad, Mr. Salil Ganeriwal, does the nonviolent communication workshop. It's also called the language of the heart. And it's also very, very effective. Only thing is both parties have to agree to it. In the way of Maitri or Vipassana, is the other person may be all angry and throwing those sparks. They don't have to agree to it, but you can still understand the source of their suffering. But in nonviolent communication, much faster, much quicker, but both parties have to agree. So yeah, it depends on the situation. And if you don't go in thoughtfully, mindfully, and prepared, you can actually add fuel to that fire. So.
Excellent, ma'am. I think what you have what you've actually said is conflict is not something which is there somewhere outside. Conflict is what is there between the people who are conversing or who are related, whether they're speaking or they are not speaking. They're related in some fashion. And I think what you're saying is that the first step by which you can reduce the negative energy is if you can keep yourself calm. And that in turn attracts the right frequencies from the other person, and they start relating to those kind of frequencies. And if that, you reflect the anger back to them, they would tend to reflect it back on you more. So I think that sort of resonance in the frequency is something which will then get the conflict. I mean, the energies which are there, the unwanted energies, into a more, controllable, and perhaps move on to something which is far more positive. Excellent, ma'am. Excellent. And I'm sure that, the audience will listen into the videos that you mentioned, which are from Marshall Goldberg. The second question in this cluster is about for the youth. What would be your reflections and thoughts as far as leadership goes for the youth for tomorrow?
You can't prepare to be a leader before you prepare to be part of the workforce. So I would say a professional journey helps one understand. A leader really needs to understand the team they're leading, and you can't do that from a bunch of theoretical principles, although they help. The real life is all about facing challenges. And unless you have worked as a professional and faced those challenges and overcome them, you won't really understand what leadership is about. I could be wrong, but I think what prepares one for being a leader is first to believe that you have something of value to do. I don't know if I'm able to articulate this well. What do you lead? Who do you lead? Where are you leading to? I think these are the equations that you need to find before you actually take up leadership. And then the leadership will unfold.
Let me try and put it in the way I have understood it. Lots of things, ma'am. I think first thing I understood is be a follower first. So the listening, be a follower first. So I think, the fact about listening, all the other things that we have discussed comes in there. The other thing is the servant leadership thing. I mean, be of service to others. I think that is another thing that you've brought in here. And the third thing which I could connect in from the previous discussion was, I come back to the purpose. What is your purpose? The person who wants to become a leader or who's starting his career journey, what is their purpose in this setting into which they have got into? And where can they contribute? Is there some connection in that? And from there, it starts with the why more than the what. I think this is what I was able to understand.
Yes, and if you're doing it just for the name, fame, and the glory of it, become an actor. Don't bother with being a leader.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Because
I think
with a leader, with the praise, you have to take the blame also. You got to take the darkest moments, and you got to take the blame for your team.
Excellent. Listen, be, do. I think you touched upon these words also earlier. So back to Professor Sudhakar.
Right. Thank you very much. I think it's getting deeper and deeper as much as it is getting interesting and interesting. I think we have touched upon a subject and a speaker who is far more deeper than what she looks like, and she looks extremely pleasant. We don't know whether she is acting or she is real, because she's an actor. So I am with this conflict is running in my mind. But I would like to stay at the present moment and take whatever I can. So that's the reason we will come with a few questions, ma'am, that are going to be useful for all of us who have been glued onto the screen for the last 100 minutes. Ma'am, the question here is about careers and growth. So what is the best tip that you can give to the women entrepreneurs who are very new to the industry? What are your tips to the women entrepreneurs?
Do the work first, you know. There are no shortcuts. When you're looking to create something that will create jobs, create value, create meaning, there are no shortcuts. And you have to be willing to put in all that hard work. And I think building anything from scratch is a lot of sacrifice. But it all leads to this wonderful place where you can stand on firm ground and then see the future, you know, arrive. So yes, keep your goals very focused. I would say there are a whole bunch of all the core management principles are very important. I won't say there's a shortcut to management school, business school. All those are very key. You need to have somebody tracking your progress every second of the way. But I'm the visionary. I like to kind of fit things in a very creative way. And I see things that, you know, graphs and tables and principles may not see. And that's in the listening and in the human relation and recognizing the potential of somebody and making them believe in themselves and they can do what 10 people can do. And I think this is the strength of something driven with a lot of passion and built from scratch with a vision that, you know, provides value to the world. So bringing it all back to the question, women entrepreneurs, find something that will keep you on track for the first 10 years because there are no shortcuts. And unless you provide value to all your employees, they're not going to stay with you. They're not going to see the vision that you have for them in the future.
Very interesting. So your advice is for them to build the firm ground from which the future arises. Thank you very much, ma'am, for that explanation, which is very nice. The next question is how to be effective both at work as well as at family. What do you suggest?
You got to figure it out.
How did you do it?
There's no magic mantra, you know, you got to be mindful. There are moments you'll have to be selfless. There are moments, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. But I think if you work on relationships, if you put relationships before anything else, I believe that, see, in my life, I can't talk about anybody else's life, but in my life, I never gave importance to things. Things were always to, you know, keep you comfortable, keep you safe, keep you healthy, keep you fed, make sure that you have everything you need to get to work and do a good job at work. But it doesn't go beyond that to me. People matter. And when people matter and you focus on your relationships, then they're always there for you when you need them. And they believe in you and they don't misunderstand you. I've always found myself surrounded with very supportive, wonderful people. And I'm very, very grateful for that.
Great, great. Thank you very much, ma'am. I waited for this answer to unfold slowly because it requires a lot of reflection and thought. But you simplified it for us by citing what you have done yourself in your life, and that's very interesting. People matter, and focus on relationships. They will be there for you. They will believe you, and they will always be available for you. That's the leadership mantra from Mrs. Amala. One more question I have, a very quick one, is how did you leverage, ma'am, your celebrity status for garnering the much needed attention for the cause that you have espoused?
I never missed an opportunity. Sudhakar Garu, when you messaged me, we were in leadership crisis, everybody was down. But I said, okay, we will be able to reach out and touch those many lives. So I'm going to find a moment to focus. What can I contribute to this? And I wouldn't have been able to say all this if I wasn't Amala. And I wasn't who I was. So here we are. I hope that answered the question. I don't miss a good opportunity.
Yeah, never miss a good opportunity. That's fantastic. And that's applicable in any sphere of work or life. If you have your goals very, very clearly set for yourself, I think we should follow that. Thank you very much for that. I will open up one question for the audience because they've been raising their hands, and I'm sure it must be paining. For quite some time, the raised hand remained raised. Srikanth, can you please allow Praveena Bhimavarapu to ask the question? Yeah, I did that. Yes, Praveena, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, I can go ahead with the question.
Please.
So while all of this is a session more valuable than in many other leadership sessions, I think everybody enjoyed. And the one line or the one slide which really touched me is Madeleine Albright's line, and that to do with the women helping or not helping women. So some of us are blessed where we have support, but many are not. What would be your advice to those, and what as others who have those support, right, to help them, and also to see women entrepreneurs, but there are women who are working very, very small odd jobs. So what is your advice, Amala Garu, to those who are in a position to help and those who actually need to help themselves?
Every case is unique and needs a lot of thought and consideration, listening, understanding to what the situation is. But a simple tip I would give is, we've got WeHub. Have you heard of it? Women Entrepreneurs Hub in
Yes.
Ambedkar University. I went there a week ago and I was just blown away. It is amazing, and it's a state government initiative, and it's meant for women entrepreneurs, and they give you this office space, and they give you training, they give you support systems, and if you kind of meet the criteria they're looking for in the entrepreneur space, they'll actually connect you to funding, and it's just phenomenal. I would say just go there, work there one day in a week, so you'll get to know and see how you can support other women. It's really path-breaking. I'm so proud of it. It's right nearby. I live very close to Ambedkar University, so I intend to go. They said, "Ma'am, please come and work here at least one day a week. You'll give other women that inspiration to work," meaning take your laptop and go do all your stuff there, work online over there at the WeHub. So I hope to see you there.
Praveena.
I will be there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll have a quick question from Krishna Rao Baggi. Please ask, sir. Mr. Krishna Rao, you'll have to unmute yourself. Okay, we'll bring in Lavanya Garu. Unmute yourself. Yeah, please go ahead, Lavanya Garu.
Good evening, ma'am. Thanks a lot for your wonderful presentation, and it is very inspiring. My question is, you had mentioned about ant versus elephant. It's like David versus Goliath. So, what is the way out if a particular person is in such a situation?
Aha. So you're fighting somebody's elephant.
I can't say
Hypothetically. We're all fighting each other's elephants. What was your name again? Sorry?
Lavanya, ma'am.
Lavanya. Lavanya, we're all fighting each other's elephants. So how big is your elephant?
It's huge, ma'am. Humongous.
Then pick your fight. Apna time aayega.
Bahut shukriya, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question, Lavani Garu. Now the last person I would request is Sindhu Chitturi.
Hi, ma'am. This is Sindhu. I joined the call from USA. So from childhood, I'm observing you, and that's one of the main reason I became a vegan. And it inculcated in such a depth that even for my marriage, I rejected to wear a silk sari. And when I went for the shopping, the shopkeeper asked me a question. Oh, so you're an Amla fan. So you want to pick a sari which is not made up of silk. So that's a response I got. And currently I'm in US, and it's very easy for me to practice being a vegan. And for some reason, it was not that popular in India. So what advice you give to people who are listening to us to practice veganism? Because I feel it's all interconnected, like from animals, picking your food, to compassion.
First of all, it's wonderful to connect with you. I truly appreciate you sharing the journey you've made. Whenever I hear somebody say that they've become vegetarian or they've turned vegan, I like to take a moment and just acknowledge what they've done. I want to congratulate you. What you have done is freeing millions of creatures from their suffering, and the universe rejoices with me on your actions. Be blessed and know that we appreciate what you do. I want you to know that. For the second part of your question, I'm not a preacher, you know. I just like to do. I'm an empathizer. I feel strongly about something and I'm the first volunteer to go do it. So each one to their own, you know, everyone's here on their own journey. I'd say, sure, try one day a week, a vegan Monday or a vegan Wednesday, and you will really contribute to reducing your carbon footprint, to climate change, to reducing climate change, to reducing the suffering of animals, to improving the health of your body. Did you know a plant-based diet can actually reverse disease? If you have any aging or disease condition inside your body, it would actually help you reverse it. So yeah, there are a lot of benefits for it. Do try it one day a week. It's, you know, try it. And if it works for you, who knows? You may make the choice. I'm not a preacher.
And I would really want to thank you, ma'am, because even being in US, I was able to advise my friends and many other people around me. And I came to know the word vegan from you. I got influenced a lot from you. So just thanks. But because our entire generation is watching you in a more bigger way than you expect. Thanks a lot for propagating all this.
Thank you, Sindhu, for asking that question and that conversation. Very interesting. Okay, we'll give this one. Lalita Devi Garu, the final question. Please don't raise hands after this. But ma'am, I think this session has been pretty interesting and profound, as I mentioned earlier. This is very different from all the 40 conversations we have had over the last 9-10 months. And I must confess that this has been therapeutic as well. The way you are speaking, the way you're conducting, and you are in complete control of the pace of this discussion and learning and appreciation that we are making out of this is completely in your control. I think you have excelled in the way that you have controlled how we have to behave. Even we started asking questions in a slow manner. Professor Prasad and I have actually got accustomed to maintaining the pace that you have set for ourselves. That is a very, very interesting phenomenon which I observed. But the learnings are many, and some of the learnings that I would like to share as a wrap up are the following. Your realization that the creative discipline would set in because of the rigorous practice that is through dance is a very important thing which will be helpful in other walks of life, other activities that anyone takes up. So creative discipline is a very important thing. Traveling has given rise to knowing the diversity, cultural, social, and many, many forms of diversity. And then as a human being, one would be very much open to understanding diversity and being very inclusive in this world. And that equanimity will come. And this is learned in the University of Life triggered by travel, which you have been doing quite a bit of a travel in early part of your life itself. Movies have given you that space and new relations and new openings for a different phase of life. Of course, others will have their professions giving those options and generating new paths for us to discover oneself. The other important point you mentioned is about parenthood or motherhood, where you learn to let go when the children grow. I think that's phenomenal, and everybody experiences that. But seeing that at the right time, as you have mentioned, how you rediscovered your life with the child is something very touching and very profound as well. And the social cause that you have espoused through BlueCross Foundation is basically helping navigate yourself out of the suffering. I mean, that was the starting point, and you found the solution with the help of Vipassana, with the help of reflection, with the help of several books, and also being self-aware yourself has helped you navigate yourself out of this suffering. And I'm sure that is a very, very important cornerstone for the entire discussion today. You have also redefined that leadership is like a constant gardening. You will have to work at it. You will have to also start sowing or start growing small plants, and then you will expect to reap the benefits. The other side of the leadership that you mentioned is that leadership is not theoretical. Until you get into the workforce, everything looks theoretical, but young students will have to realize that they need to understand the teams that they're going to lead, the subject that they would like to actually champion. There is no theory. It is a real life learning and real life check that leadership is all about. And that has come when we were having the slowest of the pace in our discussion. So it has actually exploded as a big learning in your talk. Thank you very much for that. The other learnings that we have actually picked up is the ability to reinvent oneself when things are not working in the way it is supposed to work. The way you have actually stopped everything, shut everything, and got into a brainstorming mode to see what was working and what was not working. I think this reality check is very much needed, and this leadership mantra will help us handle our own businesses, our own teams, small and big, and also especially in life, wherever we can apply. I think reinventing, taking a pause, brainstorming, and identifying for everything that works, there could be 5 things that are not working, and then segregating those things and focusing on what is working and improving those effective measures is a solution for us. And before you began all these things, we were drawn into a beautiful world of how you analyzed the world of empathizers. Most of us are empathizers. The world is actually good. But you have gone one step forward and said that empathizers are actually, because they see suffering, they get stuck there, they get lost sometimes, and they need to actually come out of that very soon. And it is not good for leaders, because leaders are supposed to find solutions for many others who are around us, for the cause that we are espousing, and also for the people who are dependent on us sometimes and who are sharing the same purpose. I think they will be looking for direction and leadership. I think we need to quickly come out of this. Being an empathizer we need to find, we will be sucked in by the suffering, but we need to also come out of the suffering as soon as possible. The constant conflict between what you like and what you don't like. This is a very simple statement, but it is a very hard-hitting reality, and that's how the suffering begins. And if we can create some kind of balance to the extent possible, we will avoid that stress. And one of the things that you have discovered is through Vipassana. Others may have their own methods of discovering this, how to build that equanimity in oneself, and the biological homeostasis is supposed to be coupled with or strengthened with this kind of equanimity, either through Vipassana or through any other means. The learnings are immense, they are numerous, but I will say that we need to protect the empathy and the compassion that is within you, away from those negative energy vampires from within and from outside, which will be trying to take advantage of your empathy and compassion. I think that is what the leaders will have to learn. Leaders will also have to learn how to handle the negative bias. And we, as you have quoted, we need to learn to not focus on fighting the old, but actually building the new ones. And that is how you harness the power of Mother Nature. And then you'll be able to keep yourself focused on the goals that you have set out for yourself. And most importantly, the one that has hit me, and I'm sure it has also impacted many people who have been watching you, is the fact that how soon you can experience truth so that you can stop blaming others. That fault-finding exercise will come to an end when you experience truth. I think that is the topmost learning and takeaway that we have. And ma'am, as you have hoped, I hope that Dr. Carol will get the next Nobel Prize. And we also hope that women will step out more to help other women in the ways that you have described, and also in many ways that they can define for themselves and discover for themselves. And I hope this world will be more D&I, that is more open to diversity and more practicing in terms of inclusiveness in their work, in their society, in their life, and even at their dining table when they're talking to their kids, to shape their mindset for being a very responsible citizen in this world. And one style of leadership, which I will end with, that you have told us, is listen, understand, and how your creative mind is put to action in terms of being with them and being part of the solution, is also pretty close to the design thinking concept of problem solving. So with this, I would like to thank you very much for giving us several mantras of participatory welfare through the techniques that you have adopted, and also opening our minds to discovering our own paths and techniques to reinvent oneself and be very effective. This Leadership for Social Purpose has been a fantastic session. It is a blockbuster session in the language of cinema that I can borrow from. And I must thank you, ma'am, for this patience, time, and energy, and the calmness that you have brought to the entire session. Thank you very much on behalf of all of us.
Thank you, Sudhakar Garu. Thank you, Professor Prasad. It's
you,
been a pleasure.
Wonderful, ma'am. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have finished 120 minutes. This is also a record of sorts. Thank you very much for your patience and for staying with us. And credit goes to Mrs. Amala Rao for joining us and sharing with us this wonderful talk and also this beautiful conversation. We will see you next week, that is on February 4th at 7:30 p.m. with yet another leader, a leader from the defense sector, a soldier who is constantly thinking about how this country can become Atmanirbhar in terms of defense manufacturing. So we are going to talk to a great son of the soil. We are going to talk to a great soldier next Friday at 7:30 p.m. and we'll see what we can learn from the next speaker, the next leader. So do take care. The coronavirus through the third wave is still creating problems. We are not yet out of it. I request all of you to have COVID appropriate behavior. All the measures need to be taken. Don't take it light. We will all be fine when each one of us is fine. On this note, I want to thank all of you and wish you a safe time till we meet again on Friday, 4th of February. Thank you all and have a good night.
Good night.